Hey, what's going on? Joel Staley here, and in today's video we're breaking down the question how to avoid binge eating after breaking a 48 or even 72-hour fast. Now, if you've been in these shoes before, you probably know there aren't too many feelings worse than fasting for days on end, only to totally blow it in the fourth quarter and undo all the hard work that you'd been striving so hard to accomplish the previous days. Which is why we're going to take this very seriously and cover my top 5 tips for avoiding a binge when breaking a fast. Let's get into it. Tip number 1, have a plan. The last thing you want to do if you're about to break your fast in like an hour or two is not have a game plan and be forced to go opt for something that's just more quick and convenient as opposed to something that's actually going to fuel your body and be in alignment with the goals, which is why you did the fast in the first place. Whether it's like ordering a pizza or just driving through somewhere that's convenient, a lot of times doing this is going to severely limit your choices. And instead of having a steak or some chicken or something that's high quality, you're going to be forced to have something greasy, quick, cheap, and that doesn't really fuel the goals you're working on. Which is why it's important to have a plan almost as soon as you start your fast and know exactly what that meal is going to be once you break. Typically what I like to do is on the morning of that day that I'm going to break my fast later on, I'll put something in the crock pot so I get to smell it all day. I get to anticipate and look forward to this meal. And again, this is a high quality meal with a lot of protein, a lot of healthy fats, and keeping the carbs to a minimum. Why keep the carbs to a minimum, you ask? Great question. And that leads me to tip number 2. Keep the carbs low. What happens when you're fasting and burning stored body fat for days on end is your blood sugar and your insulin are nice and low and steady. If all of a sudden you break your fast and totally spike your blood sugar through the roof, what's going to happen is about an hour later, it's going to start going in a tailspin. What that's going to do is induce a lot of extra hunger and a lot of extra cravings, especially towards sugar, which is going to drastically increase the odds of you binge eating and totally undoing all that hard work you had just done. I remember one time specifically, I broke a 96-hour fast with this giant stack of pancakes, almost like that one that you see Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson always posting about. And not only did this ramp up my appetite, it had me feeling like complete garbage. Think about it this way. For days on end, your body is used to burning stored body fat for fuel, and then all of a sudden you load it with a bunch of sugary pancakes, and now it has to switch directions completely and change all of its fuel sources to now burning carbs again. It's almost like slamming the brakes in your vehicle when you're doing like 95 miles an hour on the highway. Instead, keep that fat burning going by keeping your meals high fat, moderate protein, and keeping the carbs to a minimum. You don't have to do that forever, but especially on the meal that you're breaking your fast, like your first meal, you'll definitely want to adhere to those guidelines. Tip number 3 is make a protein shake. So typically what will happen is you'll break your fast around 5 o'clock and you'll have, let's just say, a big tomahawk steak, some charred Brussels sprouts, maybe a side salad, something awesome. And then fast forward a couple hours, you don't really want more steak or more salad per se, but you just need a little something something. This is especially true if you're rolling fast and you know that you're about to start another 48 or 72-hour fast, and it almost creates this scarcity of like, I need to eat whatever I can right now before I don't eat again for a couple days. Generally, this is where guys find themselves getting into the pantry or the freezer or even the alcohol, which is going to lead to both. What I've found works extremely well, even though it's very, very simple, is in that time period, about an hour and a half to 2.5 hours after your dinner, when you need that oral fixation, you want something to snack on, maybe something to curb that sweet tooth, get a nice big blender, put in some 1% milk, a couple scoops of whey protein, and then mix in some frozen fruit, like some frozen strawberries and bananas or some blueberries with some peanut butter, and make a voluminous, big, filling, sweet tasting protein shake that you can sip on for the remainder of the night. I've personally not only experienced the benefits of this myself, but have seen it work for hundreds of clients that were struggling with nighttime binge eating or just snacking out of control. A lot of times it's not the chips or the popcorn or the trail mix you actually want, it's the oral fixation, the feeling of actually doing something, and also curbing that sweet tooth. The protein shake takes care of both. Not to mention, get you an extra 50 grams of protein every night. Before we move on to tip number 4, do me a favor and like this video if you're getting something out of this, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're really into fasting for fat loss and you want to get all the information you need to go the distance this year. All right, let's get back to it. Tip number 4, set a goal. Now, too often, the fast itself is the goal, which is a major problem because once you hit that goal, the goal's over and you don't have a new goal. So what I mean by that is, say you've never done a 72-hour fast or it's been a while. Now, you put this on your to-do list. You want to do this 72-hour goal. You track it in an app. You go the distance. You cross it off and you're like, feeling of relief. I'm done. I did it. Now it's time to reward myself. The fasting is a means to a goal, but it shouldn't be the goal itself. It might be a micro goal, but set a goal in terms of weight loss. If I'm 210 pounds and I want to be 180 pounds, it's going to psychologically be a lot easier for me to adhere to my refeed windows and my boundaries I set when I am eating, as opposed to just doing the 72-hour fast, feeling like I did a really good job, and then eating everything in sight. If you're keeping your goal weight and your fitness goals top of mind and understand that this is just a vehicle to help you get there quicker, it's going to be a lot easier to stay within those boundaries you set for yourself during those refeed windows and stay motivated even when you're not fasting. If you want a super duper pro tip, write those goals down on a daily basis, preferably first thing in the morning. That way it's front of mind as you start each day. And finally, tip number 5, as always, make sure you're drinking a shitload of water. It is too common for guys to drink black coffee until about 10 or 11 a.m. and then go without drinking any sort of water until 4 or 5 o'clock. And it's a very natural response to confuse the feeling of hunger with dehydration. There have been many times I'm halfway through a fast or 3/4 of the way through a fast, and all of a sudden I'm like, why am I hungry right now? Normally I'm not super hungry. And typically the questions I ask myself are, did I get enough sleep? If the answer is yes, then almost always the answer is, have you had any water today? And my answer is typically no. What I'll go do is I'll fill 2 shaker bottles filled with water and I'll try to drink them in under 60 seconds. And although it's just kind of a funny game I play with myself to get the water down quick, it is immediate, that feeling of hunger going away and me feeling like I can fast for another day or 2. Let me leave you with this. Don't consider your fast the goal. Consider it like you're driving the football and you've made it 90 yards and now you're sitting at the 10-yard line. But to go into that end zone, that is the quality of the refeed that you're eating. Now, this doesn't mean you have to eat these baby rabbit-sized portions or like have the protein the size of your fist or stick to 1 plate or any of these weird rules that you hear people talk about. What it does mean though is eat as much as you want, assuming you're not gorging yourself or eating to the point that you feel like sick to your stomach. Just keep that food high quality and you can literally eat loads and loads of food. What we want to avoid here is getting into the Doritos, then the kids' cereal, and then we're getting into the Ben & Jerry's, and then the leftovers in the fridge, and then the trail mix. Binges like this is where progress is absolutely killed, and even worse yet, you wake up with that sense of shame. That's what we want to get rid of completely. And you do it by going into the fast with a plan, keeping your carbs low, having a protein shake a couple hours after dinner, reminding yourself that the fast itself wasn't the goal, it was just a means to an end, and you have real fitness goals that you're still chipping away at, and staying hydrated. You do those 5 things, you can't possibly fail. If you have any questions as it pertains to fasting, drop them in the comments. I'll give you a shout out in my next video if I use it. And if you want to download a copy of my new book, The Total Reset, along with an accompanying course walking you through everything, I'll drop that link in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.